The opinions expressed in this podcast may not necessarily reflect those of the host or management.
I think it's ultimately important that young women and young men have extreme respect for their bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
They really do. And there needs to be more. I did teach in schools, but I didn't teach sex education. But I think that the programs and the books that I saw, the materials, are so
outdated, right?
Outdated. There's so much more that we need to.
And our misconceptions about one another.
Yeah.
Like we think, as a woman, I always thought that men were a certain way. And it was all the other women told me, oh, men are like this and men are like that. But honestly, my true experience has been the opposite.
Join the conversation with Summer Keith, where we discuss everything from the serious to the insane to the stressful and the often surprising ways to deal with it all.
Join the conversation.
Welcome to Join the Conversation with Summer Keith. Summer?
Hey, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. Thank you.
Well, I hope you have a lot of energy.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Because this is a really heavy duty topic. It's a hot topic. So what's dividing men against women and vice versa these days?
Oh, it's communication, because we feel like and doubt that somebody's not going to be telling the truth, right? So if you have trust, then you wouldn't have so much doubt and there wouldn't be so much misconception on what's being communicated.
Well, a lot of people are scared, male and female. So the relationships between men and women and how the internet, I believe, has turned the whole scheme of connecting to others upside down. It's and that of course is what our hot topic is.
Yeah, it's the best of both worlds and it's the worst of best worlds, right?
Yes.
So it's easy to hook up, but then you're not always going to get what you want, right?
People don't communicate directly like they used to. It isn't really a relaxed world to be in, and I think that there's sort of fears of, well, we'll be getting into all those different kinds of fears, but it isn't really a comfortable place all the time. And even the movies and the TV shows and stuff have sort of relegated men on one side and women on the other instead of seeing what we have to offer each other to make things more, just more copacetic. So anyway, for the man or woman who's seeking companionship, statistics are showing that there's a lot of fear for both men and women than ever before. The men fear rejection, and the women fear for their personal safety. So what do we do? As corny as this may sound, what men and women of all ages need to do, and I'm sounding authoritative because, I feel like I'm feeling authoritative right now, but they need to begin with getting to know someone as a potential friend. Yes, that's right. Not a booty call, not a good time, and certainly not a one-night stand. When you look at all these, what I call fast food type internet sites with these juvenile names like Grindr and Bubble or Bumble, Tinder, Hinge, Sugar Daddy, well, they're generally one-word websites that sound shallow, and frankly, they're focused on scoring for sex. So this is lame, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, if that's it's not best for either person, the male or the female. In the end, it just becomes a booty call.
Well, I got a quick little anecdotal story, and this is true. This has been a few years ago, but this friend of mine, this was when I was living in the Southeast. Well, she went on that sugardaddy.com. I think that's what it is called, sugardaddy.com.
Yes.
And she met this guy. And I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in the story, but I'm not going to go through all of them. And she liked him. And then he took her here and there. And, she had this preconceived idea that just because it said sugardaddy.com that, he's supposed to spend money on her and everything. Well, anyway, cut to the chase. She found out that he was also dating some other girl. And she just flew into a tirade over that. And I said, how can you even be upset? It's
right.
Called sugardaddy.com.
But also you're dating still at that point.
You're dating.
You're not in a relationship. You're only dating.
So he is not going to be true blue if he's still on the site.
Right.
That's what it's called.
And if he's on the site, obviously multiple girls are
Yeah.
talking to him. So
Right.
why wouldn't he date multiple?
And I kind of stood back. But then again, I'm, from the point of rational thinking most of the time.
And I think it usually boils down to who you want to spend time with, right? Like if,
Yeah.
I always say that, like, you're going to spend time with the person that you are most comfortable with or want to spend time with or like the most. So if they're falling in love or if they actually want to go into a relationship, then that second person would drop off at that point.
You have to have something in common.
But you're on a dating site. So I would think that would be obvious.
Well, yeah.
Right?
But it wasn't to her. So anyway, if you must go on the internet, then at least find a more reputable site, such as eHarmony, Match.com. Now, I don't know these sites personally. I don't have any reason to endorse them.
I don't think it's much better. Honestly, I do know a little bit about it. I think it's still a really rough sea.
Yeah.
It's rough seas. I mean, people ghost each other and you don't know why. I mean, a guy could take a girl out and she could just, he could really like her. And then all she has to do is push block on her phone. And then he has no idea, like, did I say something? What happened? Like, it's really rough seas for sure.
Well, some sites are probably, from what I've read about, some of them have more elaborate profiles. And
that might be
you can
eHarmony.
double check. Yeah, and you can also, sort of do like what do they call those checks when you...
Personality match?
No, it's where, you can do a background check to see if they've, have felonies or some kind of a scary history. But it's a different world. And then once you do establish some type of connection with somebody, then start with texting and emailing, where at least you can pretty much tell something about their grammar and possible level of education and so on. I know that sounds a little uppity of me to say that, but I don't care. I think that, you need to be on that level if you want to know if they've done anything with their life, if they've actually finished high school at least, or maybe gone on to college, if you're the type of person who wants to speak to someone that, has a similar background as yours. Secondly, if they sound interesting to you, then take a leap, speak over the phone, then later meet in person in a public place. But think about this, and this also sounds a little old-fashioned, but sometimes things that are old-fashioned really are, they just have more substance to them. Ask your potential date if you can bring a friend or a relative. That might kind of blow their mind, but still.
Yeah, I think that you're going to have a few phone conversations first and feel comfortable with the person before you actually meet them anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they were opposed to that, I mean, I actually think that sounds like an okay idea. But I think as long as you're meeting in a public space and you're going to a restaurant or a bar or what have you, then there's going to be people around. But I do think you need that one-on-one communication, because the third person could change the vibe. You need
maybe
that
not
one-on-one.
initially, but maybe later on. But just because then you hear, see, and read about these abductions. And I mean, men and women both can be very deceptive.
Oh, yes.
That's why I'm saying. So you have to kind of really trust your gut.
Mm-hmm.
But if they say, absolutely not, I'm not going on a date with you. I just want to talk to you, and I don't want anybody, to come there. And even if, you could get the vibe that if they're that adamant about not having someone join you, like it could even be your child, or it could be, your roommate or something like that. And if they, just seem like just uncharacteristically objecting to that, then that would be a red flag. That's all I'm saying about that. So, but yeah, that would be a telltale sign if they're impatient or rigid or set in their ways.
Or looking around every minute. Who's watching? Who's gonna? There's so many weird signs.
There are.
Yeah,
we women have seen a lot of them.
Red flags.
Yeah. Secondly, and this is also sounding old-fashioned, but it really has worked. I've known a lot of people that have met people like in community organizations. In other words, they just meet people in in familiar surroundings of what their interests are.
Mhm.
And that, it's sort of like the old-fashioned way that people on farms, would be like the families.
I think a lot of people do get into relationships from their workplace, going to college or, just being in a larger group and connecting that way. I think it is a better way, going to church or being in one of these larger communities where you are attracted to somebody's particular personality or looks.
Truly, if you're in that kind of a setting, then you're sort of doing things, you're doing things naturally that you would normally want to do. Let's say you're, decorating the church for, Halloween or something like that. And then you meet somebody else and, he's helping you do that as well.
It's more natural, right?
It sounds like Hallmark Channel, but ain't nothing wrong with the Hallmark Channel, because it's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
And also,
but we're isolated. And so some of these, online dating sites are really the only way, for some people. They don't, they might be self-employed, they might be retired. And so they're isolated and it's, the easy way to date.
Well, and there's a lot of people that have such demanding work schedules too. I know that. But, if you can get out and be in a whole different environment, then that helps.
Yeah.
Or also networking with friends.
Right.
There's also singles groups.
Oh, I've heard of those lately. A girlfriend of mine, Susan, just is going to a lot of like meetup.com. They have a lot of single meetups all over the county. I was really surprised to even see that.
You might meet somebody. It's not all about, just trying to find a partner to date, but you might even meet somebody that you enjoy maybe working with, like, if you own your own business.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I'm bringing all this up about meeting and going to community events and that sort of thing is to try to get people encouraged to get away from that cocooning that we've been doing over the pandemic. Because
get out there. Mm-hmm. Get out there. And I mean, in a lot of respects, like not just dating, but just get out there to become more part of your community, to have a happier life, right?
Yeah.
Right? To don't get stuck.
It's too easy to kind of just say, oh, it's too much work. I think I'll just sit here and binge watch on Netflix. And then that's also, if that's not your cup of tea, then join classes like book clubs, art clubs, dance studios, hiking. For one thing, doing this will automatically narrow down meeting someone who has at least one common interest with you. And there's no pressure because you'll be in a group with other people, not just one-on-one, as in a first date. The point is there's a lot more public places to meet people now that the pandemic is over. And consider this. These types of places and organizations are safer places to meet and to get to know someone. And you might even learn more about their friends and their family. And then it's just more casual and comfortable. As I mentioned before, I do a lot of blogging, and I have read just kind of like horror stories of women relaying their first time meeting somebody that they might have met on one of these sites. Usually it really is like these ones like Tinder and Grindr, and it's not like I'm trying to, put them down, but they're not, those sites aren't as well developed at trying to create a profile about somebody, so they're not vetted per se as much.
Mm-mm.
And it's been scary, like a lot of close calls. And then once you do meet somebody, I would say, don't be afraid to ask personal questions about their friends or family. I mean, you don't have to
drill them.
Yeah. Their work history, maybe their religion, their personal background. And then also, even in the course of other conversation, find out about what their future goals are, what their aspirations, and be forthcoming yourself. I mean, you don't want it to be like you're a detective and they're under the gun, and where they're being interrogated. That's not the point. But
it's an interesting road in finding out what somebody wants, because we all want something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people want love, some people do want a booty call, and some people want, a friend or a companion. So it's finding, asking those questions up front and finding what each other wants and being truthful, like you said.
And having adult conversations.
And hopefully the truth does come out and within,
Yeah.
time. But I think there is going to be some deception and with dating,
Mhm.
I think we're all trying to show up the best we can, and we're all going to have the same fears of rejection, fears of, getting duped.
Mhm.
But you still have to go through that to find good people.
Right. I've heard some stories because I talk to anybody, I mean, if I'm comfortable, I'll talk to anybody. That doesn't mean I'm dating anybody, I have a partner. But I've talked to some guys. I like to ask them questions about different things.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine, she was in the field of hospitality, and so I would, after teaching, I'd go and sit down with her, and sometimes at the bar at this particular place, and just sit and just kind of chill out from teaching all day before I went home.
Yeah.
And then there would be guys that would come around because I'm sitting there and she's sitting there, and they would join the conversation with Summer Keith. But I'll tell you what, I didn't really know a man's perspective. So I still don't really, because I'm not a man. But what I heard was a lot of these guys would tell me things like, sometimes if they would date a woman that just looked like totally immaculate from the top down, everything all in place, every hair in place, makeup and everything, they said they might be pretty to look at. Now, this is what guys have told me, not just one.
Yes.
But they've said, I can tell immediately that they're going to be very high maintenance. So, and I'm not trying to be crude. So they might have the girl for the date. And if they didn't put out, let's say, then the guy would just move on because, ultimately maybe they're just kind of looking for that. I mean, I'm just telling you what I've heard.
Yeah.
I'm not putting any judgment on that at all. So what I got from that is most men, I'm talking about adult men, I'm not talking about, 20, 30-year-olds, I'm talking about 40, this might be their second time around, are interested in the woman that they can feel comfortable with. If a man has matured, he doesn't want that little pretty thing that's all concerned about everything is just perfect, because not only are they high maintenance, just physically, but
they
also,
might be self-centered or self-absorbed.
Well, financially. This guy said, I could tell right away she was going to cost me some money. But it was funny because I never, that didn't cross my mind that would be a determining factor. Because this is what you're thinking sometimes as a female. As a woman, you're thinking, oh, wow, she's gorgeous. I'll never look like that. And really, I wouldn't even want to look like that. Because then, you can't.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work and you can't really be relaxed. So it was cool because I was thinking, oh, well, then, actually men are not. They look at it and they can think about it, maybe even fantasize about it.
but they don't really want it.
They don't really want it. Right. She's not the girl they're going to take home and meet the family,
Yes, not a keeper.
Anyway, yeah, talking about, it is almost like you're interviewing somebody when you first meet them. You can't help but not, Mm-hmm. And then also you set a standard. Now, I will tell you this. I read a lot. This will surprise you, Celia, because you know me fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
I like watching Steve Harvey just because he's funny.
Oh, great. Yeah, he's great.
He's a good guy. And he's married for the third time, but it looks like him and his wife, Marjorie, are really a good match, Anyway, he wrote a book about 10 years ago, and it's called Act Like a Lady and Think Like a Man. And I thought, well, that's kind of a hokey title, but I thought, he's not a psychologist or a therapist or anything. But I like his sense of humor, and just seems like a pretty, he's come from the bottom and up. So there's something about him that obviously it has some substance. So anyway, I got the book and I've been reading it. I haven't read it from cover to cover, but he kind of lays it out on the line. I'm paraphrasing it. So if he ever hears this interview, I don't want him to think you misquoted me. But he basically says that, you as a woman, if you are in the dating scene, you are setting a standard just by the way you present yourself, essentially. And, whether you say yes or no, like let's say the first date or something, and the guy's getting like a little excited, shut it down. I mean, he says to have like approximately 3-month waiting period just to get to know somebody, which I thought was really respectable of him to say that. and also to advise women, because it was like he's saying, look, I know the mind of a man because I've got the mind of the man, but
Yeah.
Just kind of cool your jets for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
but I'm hearing that women are the instigators, and even on the dating sites, it's interesting because we think that the men are, but a lot of times these days, women are becoming more aggressive, and it's a fact that some of the men want to wait, and take their time and to get to know someone and have better morals and guidelines that they want to wait. But sometimes women are definitely the aggressors.
I would say it would probably be the ones that already have been married, possibly because they sort of know the ropes, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case for some women, I'm not a counselor for anything like this, but I would recommend cooling their jets too, because you're sort of setting a standard then. Like,
I think for both parties involved, I mean, at least waiting a few dates, whether that's a month, you get maybe 3 dates in a month. I think that's a good aspiration, or
it's a goal.
A goal. And if you decide to wait longer as partners, then if that's a good idea, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But I think it's just not a one-way street, honestly.
Well, intimacy, and I'll sound like I'm very, very, conservative, but intimacy is intimate, and it's not something to just jump into. You really need to know something about somebody. I have family members that are younger than me. I'm not going to identify everybody, but you know who I'm talking about. So I had 2 boys. I never had girls. But of course, I've counseled a lot of girls just, in school and everything. But I am telling her things that, although my mother did the best she could, but I'm telling her things that I want to warn her of, both of them, because I don't think there's a lot of good information to help young girls with, just set it, again, we're getting back to the term setting the standard.
Right. And I think the standards should be set high for both men and women.
Yeah.
For safety for both of them, so.
Yeah, true.
I don't know where to start, because, we end up getting our hormones jumping, jumping beans when we hit 14, 15, at a young age. And then, it goes from there.
And kids, that's something else I learned. Not myself. I was really I was the girl who wanted to go swimming and go horseback riding. I didn't have time for boys. I was more interested in the world at large. I wanted to travel. I didn't want anything to hold me down. So I can't say that I went through that like a lot of girls do. But I think it's ultimately important that young women and young men have extreme respect for their bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
They really do. And there needs to be more. I did teach in schools, but I didn't teach sex education. But I think that the programs and the books that I saw, the materials, are so
outdated, right?
Outdated. There's so much more that we need to.
And our misconceptions about one another.
Yeah.
Like we think, as a woman, I always thought that men were a certain way. And it was all the other women told me, oh, men are like this and men are like that. But honestly, my true experience has been the opposite.
Yeah.
I mostly have found men that are just as sensitive as I am, and just as, and wanting pretty much the same thing, love and relationships and
understanding
and companionship and a commitment and loyalty.
Yeah.
I mean, there is the bad actors, like you say, but we can't give our little girls like a full misconception that that's the always.
Yeah.
But we can guarantee a better relationship if we do wait a little while, because you can kind of get rid of those ones that are wanting the booty call right the first date, or they're not going to wait past the second date if that's all they wanted, right? So you kind of wipe that out.
It's that awkward moment that happens, and there's a lot to lose if you're not careful too, Anyway, so we're talking about a lot of communication, and also develop confidence in yourself to be able to have that kind of communication and to talk about anything, because what do you have to lose? If somebody gets all kind of, weirded out by you asking certain questions, then they're probably not for you anyway. You cannot have a relationship with somebody that you're constantly feeling like you're on eggshells. You have to just let your guard down. And then as I noticed too, with the blogging and with the talking and with the reading and the studying, because I also took a course called Relationships. This is years ago when I was in college, and it was very interesting. But have a grown-up conversation. I noticed that sometimes girls want to be all cute and coy. Stop that. It's so silly. And sometimes guys want to be overly funny because they're maybe not feeling secure about themselves. But for, some women are all giggly, and I don't know. It just seems...
Well, it's a nervous situation.
Yeah, I know. You're right.
Try it. Try
true.
it, Summer. You got to try it. It's a very nerve-wracking.
Well, I am a little bit different in that way because even as a young lady, I was never like really young, even when
you
I was
were
12,
mature. Yeah.
Yeah, I just would ask. It wouldn't matter who the person was. It could be the president of the United States. It could be Beyonce. It could be, Obama.
You were not intimidated. Well, you're
No.
a very strong woman, and that would go with the course of that.
The curiosity of getting to know somebody or something about somebody overrides feeling insecure.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is, because I want so much to try to understand. Maybe I can help, or maybe I can learn something.
Or make a connection. Yeah, absolutely. In some way.
Connection. So anyway, and then also I wanted to interject this and see what you think about this. They often say opposites attract, but that's basically because there's an intrigue of meeting someone that's really unique or different from yourself. However, if they don't share a lot of your views on things like politics, hobbies, families, religious or non-religious beliefs, then there will be a lot of arguments in store for the future, guaranteed. So I actually know this from experience because I married someone from a whole different country, and there was opposite attracting, but it was, we literally were too different. We were just too different, ultimately.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he was terrible and I was, the poor victim. It was not like that. It's just over the years, it's like there were no sparks flying because we were just too different.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's some opposite things are good.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to fit together like puzzle pieces. So I think that opposites do attract, but I think you definitely have to have some common ground as well to relate to each other.
Well, and finally, this is again about meeting and developing a relationship. So you want to stick to relevant topics that might not initially sound romantic, but it can be if you're confident about what your objectives are. Keep it as light as possible without unloading emo baggage. Nobody wants to hear about your ex when you first get to know somebody and how horrible they were. I mean, that will come out later, but initially you want to know how you jive together. And so don't look at this new partner, if you've just been on 2 or 3 dates, as somebody who can, sort of lighten your load, so to speak, emotionally.
Yeah.
Because
it depends, because sometimes, people, it just happens, it just comes out, right? You need to kind of unload. You don't care if it's, you don't care if it's a client. You don't care if it's somebody at the grocery store. Your feet, you have this problem. It's bothering you.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get it out. But yeah, it's probably not the best time to have that conversation.
Yeah. Kind of reserve that
for later.
Because you'll hear their side eventually too. As we know, most of what we're talking about here with this podcast is not necessarily the initial first time you meet somebody. It's really for people that are, like for the second time around.
Building their relationship.
Late 30s and 40s. Because those are usually the people that go on those Match.coms, I've heard. It's usually the older. It's not usually the teens.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's all ages, and then you kind of connect with the people that are within your scope.
Yeah. And if you are really considering somebody as a life partner, then be sure that you do a lot of things that are not just the two of you in a box, like don't just go out to eat. Let's say go to a concert. Well, you've asked me a couple times, and I know you like to be out there and listen to the music and stuff like that. I'm different. I like music because I'm a trained dancer.
Yeah.
So I love music. But I don't like always being around all these other people all the time. I can do it, but I'm not going to enjoy it as much.
Well, it's not for every day.
No.
It's a once a month thing, but I think that we do need to get out, and I think music is good for the soul.
Well, what I'm actually saying is I probably should have taken you up on that.
Yeah.
I mean, but we're not dating.
Come on.
Well, we're both straight. What I'm trying to get at is that I'm like anybody else. Sometimes, you sort of get set in your comfortable ways. So if you are dating somebody and they ask you to go and do something that's a little bit out of your realm of what you're used to doing, go ahead and do it anyway.
I think it's a good test, to bring your partner into an environment maybe they weren't comfortable with, to see how they can hang, because, and it's really nice to see somebody that would give you that, right?
Yeah.
Like some partners wouldn't go to a concert because they're like, I don't like that band, or I don't like that kind of music, or that doesn't sound fun to me. But by them going and giving it's a couple hours, right, of their time, but giving their best, putting in their time for you. That's what they're giving you their time, and it's for you. Yeah. So it shows a lot.
That's true.
And they probably will have a good time anyway, but it's the ones that are like, no, I don't do that. I don't go to bars, or I don't go see bands, or they're not being open to what you like. It's or it might be vice versa. It's like if you have a guy that likes baseball, and you're like, oh no, I don't want to ever go see a baseball game, ever. I hate sports. You also have to put in that time.
You got to bend a little bit.
But you have to be compromised. So isn't relationships about compromise?
It is. And that brought up, I know a lot of people. I have a friend that I've known since I was in elementary school. Anyway, this is a few years ago. She was divorced, I was divorced too. And we were talking about meeting people and stuff. She said, well, I'll tell you this right now. He's just going to have to take me for who I am. She had that attitude.
Yeah. No compromise.
No. And she said, and if he wants dinner, he has to learn how to cook it himself. I might cook it sometime. In other words, she's setting these standards. And I'm thinking, you're not going to find anybody with that attitude.
I've seen those people. Yeah. Absolutely.
And you know what? God bless her heart. She is not with anybody. But, so you can't. It's not like ordering something from a catalog of what you want and what they have to put up. They have to put up with you and that kind of snarky attitude. It's just not going to happen. Who wants that? So
yeah, no, I think it's you have to first give before you can receive, right?
Well, and you have to be happy with yourself. That's the other thing.
Yeah, you're not going to find happiness in another person if you're not happy yourself.
I'll just go out on a limb and say maybe she is actually more comfortable and happier not having anybody in her life.
Yeah, and some people put up those guards, I noticed, because they want it that way.
Yeah.
You get what you want at the end, It's like they put up these walls and they just get what they ordered.
Yeah.
They don't have to be like that.
No. So here's the bottom line. Start the initial meeting for the first time by having a good adult conversation. I'm just sort of summarizing. And then you can avoid this cat and mouse silliness, wondering if he or she has some ulterior motive. You can quickly rule out whether or not you're wasting your time with someone by sticking to topics centered around what you both actually have in common. So start with things in common. It's really, it's complicated, but at the same time, it's not. It's a matter of opening yourself up by initially, like I've told some guys, and I've had these conversations too about friendship, starting out as if you are just going to be good friends and maybe enjoy doing something, even if it's just watching a good movie together. And then after the movie's over, critiquing it and talking back and forth about what you liked or didn't like about the movie. That's what I do with my partner all the time. I like to say, what did you think about that? Oh, they should have pulled back on the camera, or, it wasn't cast well. We can talk about a lot of different things because we have a lot of different interests. But when you are trying to put somebody in a box of what you expect and only what you want, then you're going to limit yourself. It's almost like the relationship will be starting out dysfunctional to begin with. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think that was a great discussion. Thank you.
Well, good. Hope you learned something. I did.
I'll take it to heart. Yes, I did.
Well, just want to encourage our listeners that love is in the air. And there is a lot of potential, break down the barriers and be open to meeting other people. Sometimes you might find out that you might meet somebody, that you think that you might want to have some type of a romantic relationship, but they might turn out to be a good business partner. Or there might be, somebody that will introduce you to their roommate or something like that. So, but just be open. And we will be offering links on our website.
Join the conversation with summerkeith.com.
We also have little encouraging quotes and other things. And we're starting a new blog on that as well.
And we're on social, so connect with us there as well.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Have a great day and happy dating.